I stood at the entrance of the opulent ballroom, the kind of place that shouted money and status. Feeling the familiar knot in my gut tighten as I took it all in, my wife Celeste had outdone herself, busy arranging this celebration for her father's birthday. Her stepmother, Patricia, had wasted no expense, ensuring every element dripped with opulence. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, providing a warm glow over the gathering of Celeste's wealthy relatives and friends. People who'd never let me forget I didn't belong. The air smelled of expensive perfume and champagne, and the bustle of polite discussion filled the space. I adjusted my tie, attempting to shrug off the discomfort that usually crept up when I was with them. This wasn't my world, never had been. But I was here for Celeste, or at least that's what I kept telling myself. At the door, Patricia's little tradition was in full swing. A table draped with a spotless white cloth, rows of name tags printed in exquisite cursive. It was her way of making sure everyone understood their place. A subtle power play, I presumed. I scanned the table for mine, my fingers stroking over the glossy cards until I found it. Zach. Simple enough. But then my eyes caught the remainder of it, and my breath went cold. Zach, the disappointment. The words gazed back at me, brazen and unapologetic, like they'd been waiting there all night to slap me in the face. My hand froze, the tag trembling slightly between my fingers as I read it again, just to make sure I wasn't imagining things. No, there it was, clear as day. I gazed across the room, my heart thudding hard against my ribs, and there she was, Celeste. She stood near the bar, her beautiful blonde hair catching the light, a glass of wine in her hand. She was smiling, her head tilted back, like she didn't have a worry in the world, surrounded by her lovely family and their perfect friends. Our eyes met for a fleeting second, and I saw a glimmer of amusement in hers before she stated, loud enough for me to hear, "Well, it's true." Her voice cut through the cacophony like a knife, casual and harsh. A few folks close by chuckled their polite little chuckles, plunging the blade in deeper. My chest burned, a hot, angry heat flowing through me as I squeezed the name tag tighter, the edges digging into my palm. I wanted to throw it, to storm over there and demand an answer, but I didn't. Not yet. The space started to feel smaller, the walls closing in as the bustle and clinking glasses became louder in my ears. Everywhere I turned, there were those same phony smiles, those murmured chats that halted when I got too close. I'd spent years trying to fit in with these people, years pretending their jabs didn't sting. But this was different. This wasn't a subtle dig or a backhanded compliment. She was my wife, the woman I'd dedicated my life to, and she was standing there laughing at me like I was nothing, the failure, the outsider, the man who'd never be good enough for her or her high and mighty family. My throat clenched, and for a moment, I thought I would simply turn and walk out without a word. But then, something shifted inside me. I exhaled, slow and deep, releasing, the fury letting it settle into something else, something sharper, something I could use. A smirk pinched at the corner of my mouth as I reached for a champagne glass from a passing tray. The cool crystal felt solid in my hand, grounding me. If they wanted to make me the fool, fine. If they wanted a show, I'd give them one they wouldn't forget. I walked forward, my heels tapping against the shiny floor, and raised the glass high. With my free hand, I tapped it lightly with a spoon. Eyes turned from the table, the piercing clink cutting through the hum of the party. Heads turned, eyes fixed on me, and the room went quiet, waiting. I could feel Celeste watching me now, her laughter gone, her wine glass hovering near her lips. Patricia straightened up, her perfectly manicured brows raising slightly, like she was curious about what I'd do next. Excellent. Let them wonder. Let them squirm. I cleared my throat, my voice firm as I began. I'd like to make a toast, I announced, loud enough for every corner of that overstuffed room to hear me. A few individuals smiled, nodding, as if they expected some emotional speech about family or love or whatever nonsense they pretended to care about. I hesitated, letting the silence stretch just long enough to make them uncomfortable. Then, I locked eyes with Celeste. To the last time you'll ever see me. The words hung there, heavy and final, and I watched the exact moment they hit her. Her face froze, her drink tipping slightly in her hand. The grins around the room flickered, some changing to confusion, others to awkward looks. Patricia opened her mouth, perhaps to say something sharp, but I didn't give her the chance. I raised my glass higher, gave them all one last look. Those pompous, self-important faces I'd wasted years trying to please, and then I drank. The champagne was crisp and bitter, exactly like this moment. I set the empty glass down on the nearest table with a subtle clink. Without another word, I turned and walked. For the door, my pulse thumping but lighter than it had been in years. They could keep their party, their money, their name tags. I was done. I stepped through the door and into the silence of the house. No Celeste, no family, no expectations, just me. I kicked off my shoes, threw my coat on the couch, and headed for the kitchen. I didn't know what tomorrow would bring. Didn't know whether she'd show up or if they'd all just pretend I never existed. Yet right then, standing there with a glass of water in my hand, I felt something I hadn't in years. Light. Like I'd finally shaken off the lie I'd been living. The one where I thought I needed them to be whole. I didn't. I never had. And tonight, walking away from that party, from her, from all of it, I'd started proving it. I woke up, the next morning on the couch, my neck stiff from sleeping crooked, the taste of last night still bitter in my mouth. The home was quiet, too silent, the kind of stillness that makes you feel like you're the only one left in the universe. I rubbed my eyes and sat up. The crumpled name tag, Zach, the disappointment, stared at me from the coffee table where I'd tossed it. My phone was next. To it, the screen dark now, but I knew it had been blowing up all night. I didn't want to look. Didn't want to deal with whatever disaster was waiting for me. But I grabbed it anyway, powering it on just to see how awful the fallout was. The second it lit up, the alerts struck like a flood. Messages, missed calls, voicemails, all rushing in at once. I leaned back, bracing myself, and started scrolling. Preston was the first to pop out at me, because of course he was. He'd tweeted about it online. A snide little jab on his social media. Big night at Dad's party. Zach pulled a runner after his Oscar-worthy speech. Assume he couldn't withstand the heat. I could imagine him typing it, smirking over his morning coffee, believing he'd won something by putting me down again. It didn't even sting, not like it used to. It just made me tired. I scrolled past it, not bothering to reply. What was the point? He'd always been the golden boy, the one who could do no wrong, and I'd always been the easy target. Not anymore. Next was a text from Camille, her name flashing up with that fake sweet tone she always used when she wanted to look good. Okay, Zach, it was just a joke. Okay? Don't be so dramatic about it. Phone me if you want to talk. I snorted, shaking my head. A joke. Sure. That's what they always said when they got caught. Turn it around. Make it my fault for not laughing along. I could see her now, twirling her hair, batting her eyes at anyone nearby, looking like she cared. She didn't. None of them did. I deleted the message without a second thought. My thumb moved. Fast, like I could wipe her existence from my life entirely. Then came Gregory's voicemail. I hesitated, my finger hovering over the play button, knowing it'd be a lecture. I hit it anyway. His powerful voice hissed through the speaker. Zach, this is intolerable. You disrespected my family, my house, my birthday. I want an apology, and I expect it soon. Call me back. That was it. Short, quick, like he was ordering one of his employees around. No surprise there. To him, I'd never been a son-in-law. Just some man who didn't fit the mold. Someone he could shout at and expect to jump. I deleted it too, my mouth hard. He could wait forever for an apology. I didn't owe him a damn thing. I laid the phone down, staring at the ceiling, letting the calm settle back in. The fallout was immediate, just like I'd guessed it'd be. They weren't going to let this go quietly. They'd push and prod and twist it until it fit their tale. The one where I was the bad guy and they were the victims. But I wasn't playing along this time. I took my phone again and started banning numbers. Celeste, Preston, Camille, Gregory, even Patricia, though she hadn't bothered texting yet. One by one, I clipped them off. My finger moved quick and sure, like I was snipping strings that had been keeping me down for too long. When I was done, the screen went still. No more buzzing, no more noise. Just me. I stood up, stretched my back, still stiff from the couch, and shuffled to the kitchen. Coffee sounded good. The floorboards were cold under my socks as the pot brewed, filling the room with that warm, bitter smell. My phone rang again. One last time. I peered at it, expecting another guilt trip, but it was Derek, my old buddy from way back. The guy who'd been my groomsman when I'd still thought marrying Celeste was a fantastic idea. Man, his text read, I don't know whether to call you nuts or a legend. You truly did it, I smirked, replying back. Yeah, I did, he answered swiftly. Heard about the toast. Balls of steel, bro. You okay? I leaned against the counter, the coffee dripping behind me, and thought about it. Was I okay? I didn't know yet, but I felt lighter. Getting there, I sent back. Derek was the only one who checked in like he meant it, the only one who didn't try to spin it or shame me. We'd been tight since high school, back when I was just Zach, not Celeste's spouse, not Gregory's disappointment.